911, what's your emergency? 911, what's your emergency?
Be advised, Car 4 has control of the pursuit. Proceed with caution.
What a good evening it is here behind the crime door. Welcome to all of my new subscribers and members, and my old subscribers and members, and all of my moderators. How are you guys tonight? Hey, Mary. Hi, Rose. Hey, Sharon. How are you? Hey, Danger Dave. Good to see you. Hi, David. Hey, Jill. Hi, Digital. Hey, Rose. Thanks for stopping. Hi, Candy Lady. Rob Lee, how are you? Hi, Mary Flynn. Sierra, how are you? Hey, John. Welcome, welcome. Hello, Tech Death. How are you? Hey, Verbal Judo, how are you doing? So good to see all you. I hope you all had a very Merry Christmas and a happy holiday. I know that it can be a difficult time for many, but I hope you were able to spend some time with your families and friends. I had a wonderful Christmas. I got to spend it with my family, my grandchildren. It was simply amazing just to be with them. It went by so fast. I can't get over how quick those days went by, but it was amazing. And it gets more exciting, I think, every year as my youngest gets a little bit older. He's 5 this year, so he was extremely excited. And that was wonderful to see. We had some good food, and good company, and a lot of stories and reminiscing and thinking about people who weren't there, that should have been. Hey, Indy Pam, how are you? Hi, CN Red Flags, how are you? Good to see both of you. I'm glad you're here. So yeah, it was good. I will tell you that after I saw you guys on Thursday night, it was awful. On Friday and Saturday, we had horrific weather. It kept deteriorating. The wind chill got down to 35 below here. And it was just bitter cold. And we, since I was a little girl, have always celebrated Christmas on Christmas Eve. My grandparents were from Germany, and they always opened presents on Christmas Eve because that's the German tradition. And so we always did everything growing up on Christmas Eve, and I raised my kids that way. And now my daughter raises her family that way. So Christmas Eve was our Christmas, and I had to travel over to her house. So I had to go out in that bitter cold. It was insane. Just crazy. Dave, I am so glad to hear that. I know a few of my close friends that are not here in Illinois lost power as well. And it's same Tech Death, it's supposed to be in the middle to upper 50s by Saturday here. So within a week, a huge degree change. Let's put it that way. Hey, Catherine. Hey, Julianne, sorry. Hi, Josh the Posh. So yeah, the weather was crazy. And for all of us who thought it was crazy here in the Midwest, I am just so thankful that I was not anywhere near Buffalo. If you guys didn't see the weather in Buffalo, I mean, there are YouTube videos that will make you cringe. I just couldn't believe it at what I was watching. They've already had 100 inches of snow in Buffalo. So, I mean, it's really crazy. We had between 40 and 50 mile an hour winds. And we didn't get as much snow as they had predicted, thank gosh. But the 40 to 50 mile an hour winds, when it's so cold already outside, really made it unbearable. And yeah, when I was looking at Buffalo and looking at the water coming off of Lake Erie, and as it was coming off, it was freezing on the houses that were sitting right there. Those houses are literally ice sculptures. I just can't imagine if that was my house. And it was just crazy. So I do hope that everybody, like I said, had a warm and not too eventful craziness with Christmas. I know a lot of people got stranded in airports. There were people stranded on the highways and everywhere, and it was just not a good thing that happened for especially the middle portion of the country. But I'm glad to be back and, closing out 2022 with you guys. I'll be here tonight. I'll be here again on Thursday, and then I will not be here on Saturday. So you guys will be on your own for New Year's Eve. I figured I would spend New Year's Eve with my family. I do have additional family coming in this week from out of town, so it'll be nice to see them and get to spend some time. And hey, Miss Siren, how are you? It was really unbelievable, to say the least. But I am glad we got a white Christmas out of it, and I am glad we never lost power and that we were able to all be together. That was the most important thing to me. I think as I get older, that truly is the most important thing to me for the holidays is just to be together. It's really weird. I wonder what that is. Do you guys see that flashing by my live light? Wonder what that is. It's really strange. Because it's a real light, so I don't know. I don't think it's doing it itself. It seems to be fine. I think it's something with the camera, maybe. I don't know. So, yeah, Mindy, I'm over in Illinois. I'm just 2.5 hours away from Delphi, so we have the same forecast coming. Hey, SD, it's so good to see you. Thank you so, so much. I wish the very same for you. I hope you have a wonderful new year filled with love and health and peace and prosperity. I hope that for everyone. No, I don't think he is. Not sure where he's at right now. I know he's in here somewhere, but I don't think he's back here. It's hard to tell with him. But well, it's good that you guys got some rain. I'm really glad to hear that. I did put a barrier up to keep him off my router. So hopefully he won't be disconnecting a wire and making me go off screen anymore. Very cool, Candy. I was also born on October 31st. So I always have weird things happening. It's because I'm a witch. I tell everybody I'm a witch. So, well, you guys, let's just get to it, I guess. So tonight, what I'm going to talk about first, I'm going to update some cases. The first thing we're going to talk about is Libby's birthday. And Libby would have been 20 years old. And, you mentioned it last Thursday that it was coming. And this is her heavenly birthday today. And it's kind of sad because when these kinds of milestones happen for the family, it's kind of like the way I kind of describe it with my son is that for me, he will always be 4. Even though each year happens and a birthday happens, it's really hard for you to wrap your head around them being any other age than the age they were when they left here. So I'm going to just show her beautiful little face because it's just important that we remember her. So here she is with Kelsey. And, she was such a good soul and really tried to make people happy and laugh and was such a blessing to her family. They just had wonderful things to really say about her. So I can see how no matter what, she's just hugely missed. And this past year was a really tough year for the Patties and the Germans and the Williams families. There was a lot that went on this year and within the case. And it was kind of a roller coaster, I think, for them. In the midst of everything, Kelsey got married this summer, which was a wonderful blessing. But I know that she missed her sister desperately and that she, would much rather have had her there with her for her big day. So my heart goes out to Kelsey today. And she did tweet a tweet about her sister. And one of the things that Kelsey has said in the past is that, and I don't know if she did it today or not because it's so cold, but she would go to the cemetery and take Libby a large fry and large Coke from McDonald's because that was some of her favorite things. And so she would just go out to the cemetery and sit there with her. And she is a hero, Mary. Thank you. She will always be a hero, I think, for anyone who knows the case and knows what happened. She will always be a hero in our eyes. I think that her forethought to make sure that she was able to record this person coming towards her, she knew in her heart of hearts that what was about to happen was not going to be a good thing. And she was smart enough to realize that, and unfortunately didn't have the ability to get help. And because of the remoteness of where they were, it made them so vulnerable. But she's very greatly missed. I know she's missed by her friends, all the friends who were looking forward to going away to college with her, and having that experience. They were all robbed of all of those things. So we just want to remember her today and let her know that we are all still here championing for justice, and that we will still be here on that last day of the trial waiting for the verdict for Richard Allen. Love to you much, my dear little angel. So that's that. I wanted to definitely remember Libby today. I know that it's helpful and comforting to the families to know that we think about them right along with them, rather than just constantly talking about the horrific acts that were done to them. So I think it's important. And that's one of the things, like when I'm wearing my Abby and Libby bracelet all the time. I mean, I don't go a day without thinking about these girls, the Flora girls, the same, because they're right here on my wrist. I see them all the time. And even when I was in the hospital in October, I took off all my jewelry, but I left these on because I wasn't taking them off. And I had nurses and everybody in the ICU asking me who these people were that were on my wrist. So their story has gone a long way. And many of us have told their story to people who had never heard of them before. So, CN, Red Flags, so glad you're here with us. There have been so many people, Dave, that have been affected by these two beautiful souls. So many lives. And I think they will be continued to be affected, because I think the ballpark and their story will live on, and their legacy will live on, about these two girls whose love of life and friendship, and the love of the outdoors and sports will live on long, many generations to come. Hey, Salty Beach. I know I agree with you. They deserve justice, and we are championing for that for them. So, I wanted to update you guys on a couple of cases, because before we get into the topics that I want to talk about today, but I wanted to let you guys know about Lucian. If you guys remember, we talked earlier this fall about up in Yakima, Washington, Lucian Munguia went missing. He's 4 years old. He disappeared nearly 3 months ago from the Sarg Hubbard Park in Yakima, and his family is still holding on to hope, but the search has not uncovered any signs of this little boy. The parents have been cleared by law enforcement. There is no footage, camera, there's nothing. There's no clothing, there's no shoes, no socks, just nothing. It's like he completely vanished in thin air. His mom said it's even harder at Christmas because she struggles to keep going for her other two children. It's very difficult. She said, I don't want to put up with a tree or like even acknowledge that Christmas is coming. But I do have two other children that I have to keep going for, and it's not fair to them. I just put everything on hold. She says that they continue to work with the detectives on the case and private investigators in the search for Lucian, but there's still no sign of him. Police continue to state that they do not suspect foul play, but just in case Lucian may have been taken by someone who may have changed his appearance, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children has released a picture of what he would look like with short hair, and it changes his face completely. So people aren't just looking for that long, beautiful, curly-haired little boy. They're more looking at kids' faces. Cap K-View reached out to the Yakima Police Department for an update on his case and received the following statement from the Yakima Police Department Public Information Officer, Yvette Inzuana. Thank you for reaching out regarding the search for Lucian. Unfortunately, there is no update on the investigation to share with the community at this time. We have continued to receive tips and detectives follow up on all, but at this point, they have not led to anything substantial in the investigation. We are still inquiring on the feasibility to drain the pond, and at this time, there are no plans in place to drain the pond. Inzuanza added that if there is any breaking news in Lucian's case, they plan to let KAPP and KVEW and the public know about it as soon as possible. Manjuia, Lucian's mother, said her daughter does keep asking for her brother, and her oldest son keeps talking about what happens when Lucian comes back home. He always talks about it. When my brother gets back, we're going to do this and we're going to do that. We're going to take him to Chuck E. Cheese or McDonald's. And I'm like, yep, that's what we're going to do if he wants to do it. Lucian's mother said the community support has been much appreciated, and if people do want to continue to help, the best thing that you can do is to put up flyers and share his story and keep an eye out for him. Please share his photo. Keep praying for us and praying for Lucian. The family is offering a $10,000 reward for any information that leads to Lucian's safe return. And if you see something, say something immediately and call 911 or the Yakima Police Department at 509-575-6200 or email at ypd@yakima.wa.gov. And hold on one second because I am looking for his photo. Just give me a moment. Well, doggone it. Sorry, guys, just give me a sec. I'm trying to get it to open and it won't open for me. It's like, what is going on? I should have opened this before the show, and I apologize, you guys. Okay, we're going to put up this one because it's the best I have at the moment. So let's do that. All right, you can close now anytime. Sorry, guys. And there's a picture of little Lucian. And when he went missing, they had gone on a trip to the park. Her husband, Wano, had just arrived with 4-year-old Lucian and their 6-year-old son and 2-year-old daughter. With the kids in tow, she said her husband parked right next to the playground. He was changing their daughter's diaper in the car as the boys got out to play on the hill, which she said is still within view of where they were parked. And within a minute, just a blink of an eye, he was gone. And it says that the investigators found video that showed Lucian leaving the park in a southeastern direction by himself. And that was it. They did not and still do not suspect foul play. They don't know what happened to him after that. So, but anyway, so he is nonverbal and he does not understand the concept of hiding when they play hide and seek, and he always comes out before he's ever found. So those are things to understand as well. He is autistic, and it breaks my heart because it reminds me of my middle grandson, who at this age also was nonverbal. And I remember how fearful of this very thing happening to him, wandering off and not being able to tell anyone or talk to anyone if he was found about who he is or where he came from. So it is just heartbreaking, you guys. These stories just tear at your soul. Yes, miss, they still say they do not suspect foul play. They don't have any reason at this point to. They've not found any evidence that would lead them to believe there was foul play here. They believe that he could have wandered off and fallen into water somewhere. Yeah, I mean, there's just so many things that could have happened to him. So I don't know. I just pray every day for him. I can't get his little sweet face out of my head. Lucian. So we'll be thinking about him. There was a preliminary hearing, you guys. I don't know if you guys heard about this or not, but a preliminary hearing has been set in the state of Georgia versus Leilani Simon. And it was set for July the 11th or January the 11th, 2023. So it's coming up. And as everyone knows, Quentin was last seen in his Savannah home back on October the 5th. And the circumstances surrounding his disappearance led to international coverage of the case. Such a cute and sweet little baby boy. At the preliminary hearing, the state's going to have the opportunity to share some of the facts of this case and explain why there was probable cause to arrest her. Leilani had a court hearing, I think a couple of weeks ago, but did not appear on her own behalf. Her attorneys were present for her. Police have said and announced that they did find Quentin's remains, and his mother was charged with murder. The Chatham County Police Chief Hadley said Leilani Simon was arrested and booked on charges of murder. They said they do not anticipate any other arrests in the case. She's been the sole suspect since the very beginning. So they did not believe her, I don't think, at any point. And so During that landfill search, law enforcement combed through 1.2 million pounds of trash over a 30-day period. He was just 20 months old when he went missing, and they believed early on, from the very early days, that Quentin was in the landfill, and they have a very strong case. It has come out since she's been in jail that she doesn't remember anything from that day, and that because she was on drugs, and she said if she's responsible, she's willing to stand up and take her punishment. So the sad thing about this case is it was it's sad enough that they lost little Quentin, but his father, his biological father, she was arrested, but not any relation to the murder. She was arrested for something to do with family court. So Quentin's biological father lost his own father, who was out searching for little Quentin, and was walking alongside the road and was hit by a driver, hit and killed and left. It was a hit and run accident. So he lost a lot in a very short amount of time. So we'll be keeping an eye on what happens in the upcoming trial, the preliminary hearing, and see if they set a trial date for her. But we will never forget cute little Quentin and all the things that poor little boy had to have endured. They basically said she beat him to death. So I cringe. New details have been released about the off-campus home where 4 University of Idaho students were brutally stabbed to death in November, as well as newly surfaced body cam videos of the police responding to the noise complaints at the home. We know about those. They've also recently released a video from a bar downtown Moscow, the corner stop or something like by that name. We're not sure what's going on with that, but everybody's been looking at that image because it has a picture of Kaylee and Madison standing, speaking to some man or male sitting on a stool. Moscow, Idaho is a college town of about 25,000 people, so it's a very small little town. It's just a college town. Ethan Chapin and Xana Kernodle were the other 2 students who were killed. A former student who graduated in 2022 and lived in the house during his junior year described it as an old, creaky house. You can't walk up any of the stairs or on any of the floors without everybody in the house knowing it, Cole Altendare stated. Alternator said the house also doesn't offer much privacy, adding to the mystery after the students were attacked in the middle of the night. 2 of their roommates who also lived there likely slept through the attack, police have said. Police believe the victims were stabbed to death while they were sleeping. We already know all of that. Let's see what else they said. Police said that more than a month after the murders, investigators have not yet named any suspects, and they are releasing limited information. Investigators have zeroed in on grainy surveillance video that shows a white car at a gas station the morning of the murders. They're looking through the registration of thousands of cars that match the description and are asking the public for help finding clues. Police believe the occupants of that car could have information critical to the investigation. Police also released body cam video showing officers that responded to the house after a noise complaint 2 months before the murders. Officers interacted with people who didn't live there before speaking to one of the future victims by phone. Like I said, they've just released very little information, but they have, what I thought was interesting is they have still been seen going back into that home. The officers are still going back in there every now and then. And it's interesting to wonder what they're doing, if they are trying to recreate, if they're still looking for other evidence, what it is that's causing them a month later to still go back into the home. I find that quite interesting. Yeah, John, same. I've noticed the same. A lot of new content creators because of Idaho. There is a new case that I want to talk to you guys about. I haven't talked about her, but it's Madalena Kojikari. I don't know if you guys have heard about her, but her mom and stepdad have been arrested. She has been missing for over a month since she was last seen. The FBI is classifying her case as a missing person and possible kidnapping at this time. The FBI has released new photos of her amid the ongoing efforts to locate this missing North Carolina girl. They have actually put up tons of billboards. And a smiling Madalena plays at the beach, runs around her yard, and poses with a horse in the images. Earlier this week, they told us that Madalena loves horses, and she had just pure joy when she would take her plastic ponies to the beach and play with them, the FBI said. She enjoys riding the real pony named Rain. It's been over a month since she was last seen, and the FBI is classifying her case as a missing person possible kidnapping. Madalena's mother, Diana Kojikari, will appear before a judge on Wednesday for a bail hearing, and that was according to the Mecklenburg County Jail records. So that's tomorrow. She is 37 years old, and she is charged with failure to report a child missing after allegedly waiting 3 weeks before she informed officials that she'd not seen her daughter. Kojikari reported her daughter missing on December 15th. During an interview with Bailey Middle School Resource Officer Jay Nobles, according to an arrest report from the Mecklenburg County Sheriff's Office obtained by this Inside Edition reporter. At that time, Kojikari allegedly told the officer that she last saw her daughter at 11 p.m. on November 23rd when she went into her bedroom in Cornelius, North Carolina to go to bed. Officer Nobles is a member of the Cornelius Police Department. Diana stated her and her husband, Christopher Palmiter, argued that night, and the next morning he drove to his family's house in Michigan to recover some items. The report reads, Palmiter is Madalena's stepfather. Kojikari said she checked on Madalena at 11:30 in the morning on November 24th and noticed that the little girl was not in her room. Officer Nobles said the mother told him that she then waited until Palmiter returned to the house at 4 p.m. on November 26th to ask if he knew where Madalena was. He said he didn't know where she was and asked Kojikari the same question in return. She allegedly told this police officer, I asked Diana why she did not report Madalena missing until now, and Diana stated she was worried it might start a conflict between her and Christopher, said Officer Nobles in the report. Paul Miter, age 50, will appear in court alongside Kojikari on Wednesday morning. He too is charged with failure to report a child missing. Officer Nobles also interviewed Paul Miter, who told him that he left his home on November 23rd to drive to Michigan to pick up items, but said he did not see Madalena the day he left, and he believes the last time he saw her was a week before his trip. Paul Miter said that when he returned home on November 26th, he asked his wife where Madalena was, and she said that she did not know. The arrest report states he also allegedly asked Madalena's mother if she had hidden the little girl, and she asked the same question of him, and they both said no. Paul Miter never reported Madalena missing. Chris stated he spoke with Diana several times about Madalena's whereabouts over the next 2 weeks, and both stated that they did not know where she was, but they did not contact authorities to report her missing. Both Paul Miter and Kojikari's interviews with Officer Nobles took place on December 15th, and they were arrested 2 days later. A spokesperson for the Cornelius Police Department previously told Inside Edition that school employees had called the girl's mother on several occasions prior to inquire about her absence from school. The couple appeared in court on Wednesday. The couple's appearance tomorrow on Wednesday will be for a bond hearing. Paul Miter is being held on a $200,000 bond, while Kojikari is being held on a $250,000 bond. Jail records also note that Paul Miter was booked 12 hours before his wife on December 17th. There is no attorney listed or assigned to either party according to state records, and the last confirmed sighting of their daughter was on November 21st when she was seen on video exiting a school bus at 4:59 p.m., just days before Thanksgiving. The video was later released by the FBI. The only person to report seeing her after that time is her mother, who told the interviewing officer that she had last seen her daughter 2 days later on November 23rd. That account is detailed in the Mecklenburg County Sheriff's Office arrest report. She's 11 years old, Mendy. Last week, a member of Madalena's family drafted a letter thanking police for their efforts, praising the ongoing media coverage, and imploring the public to please stay on the lookout for any possible sign of Madalena. We as a family are devastated and absolutely heartbroken to learn that Madalena is missing. We love Madalena and are shocked by these circumstances. Madalena was last seen wearing jeans, a pink and purple and white Adidas shoes, and a white t-shirt and a jacket, according to the FBI. Any person with contact or information concerning the whereabouts of Madalena Kojikari should contact the Cornelius Police Department at 704-892-7773. They may also contact the local FBI office. And this is what she looks like. Hold on a sec. Let's share my screen with you so you can see her beautiful self. She's just a beautiful, vibrant little girl. There she is. There she is with her horse. 11 years old, you guys. And she's not been seen for days and days and days and days. And nobody that lives with her mother or her stepfather, report her missing. It is the craziest, absolute craziest. I just can't wrap my head around that. I'm sorry. It makes no sense to me at all whatsoever. So, So, just sad, 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 sad. So that is the updates on and all of that. Now what I wanted to talk about, or what we're going to talk about, is got a couple things. There was a motion filed in the Richard Allen case on December 21st. It was an ex parte motion authorizing funding for a fact investigator. So basically all that means is that they have just allowed them money to get an expert witness. And basically it's probably, in my opinion, going to be a ballistics expert that will be able to refute the extractor evidence that the prosecution has. And I believe that that's probably what that expert will be testifying to. At least in my opinion at this time. There could be obviously more experts that will be called in this case, obviously. Hold on one second. I want to pull myself out of there. Okay, so it's pretty interesting as I was looking up some stuff today on Delphi, and I was doing some research because I'm going to cover a couple of other large, well-known cases from years past. I was looking to research some stuff for that. And I was starting to think about the ballistic expert and all of that, and what we know, what we don't know. You know, there's a lot being said out there about the ballistics and the bullet, the unspent round that was found, and how damning that evidence can be, and how damning that evidence looks to be. In my opinion, I don't think it's the most damning evidence that's out there. When we stop and examine what we know, you have got Richard Allen being seen on camera, arriving just before the murders. They have his car arriving just before the girls arrive and the murders happen. He admits to arriving at the same time the camera has him arriving. He's seen by 3 juveniles. And he admits that he saw those 3 juveniles. The witnesses, those juveniles, are able to tell law enforcement how you are dressed, and that you are in blue jeans with a blue jacket and a brown hoodie, and with your lower face covered. And you admit that you were there wearing the same clothes. You even go further and admit that you were on the bridge at the time that the girls were on the bridge. That's pretty damning, you guys. I mean, that is pretty damning. Hey, Frank Meister, how are you? Not only do you admit to being on the bridge with the girls at the same time the girls are there, let's put it that way. They have video of you on the bridge coming towards the girls and audio of you telling them to go down the hill. They also, on that same audio, have one of the girls heard saying gun. So they know that you have a gun on you. That same gun that you're heard having by one of the victims saying gun is found in your home, and it has happens to be the same caliber of the weapon, or excuse me, of the gun, same caliber of the unspent round that was found between the girls. And then the girls are found brutally murdered down the hill that you've instructed them to go down. And the girls were murdered at a time when you were not on the trail, but you were on the bridge. And you said you were on the bridge. And an eyewitness saw you on that bridge. And it was a completely separate witness. And then after you left the crime scene and exited the woods, you were seen by another witness walking down the side of the road, dressed in those blue jeans, that blue jacket, and that brown hoodie, and covered in mud and blood, and looked as though you had been in a fight, walking towards your car that you admitted to parking at the old CPS building. And then is seen leaving the area around the same time that the witnesses place you walking muddy and bloody. It doesn't take a lot to figure out that that is extremely damning. This doesn't, that part of everything I just said doesn't mention any other evidence that they may have. And I believe wholeheartedly, 100%, that they have other evidence. Clothing. They've got the gun. They've got his car. I believe they possibly now have animal hair from the cat. I believe that they have animal hair at the crime scene. I believe they were digging up his yard to hopefully match DNA with the cat. They've obviously done luminol tests on everything that they were able to find. They took out, I'm sure, boots, hats, whatever else that they were able to find from his house and garage and the area around his home. They're going to be able to find some kind of evidence, trace evidence, or even blood evidence, or possibly DNA evidence on those items. This was a very bloody crime scene. We were told that. And I just think that when you look at it, the unspent round is not the smoking gun. It's like, to me, it's like the tip of the iceberg of evidence. It's just the tip of it. They have so much more. Now, if they're able to bring in an expert that testifies to the unspent round markings that are absolutely discernible from your gun to the next gun, they're not going to be able to explain that away. The defense attorney will have a really, really hard time explaining that away. because they're going to show those striations and those markings under a microscope. You'll see photographs of them, and all the photographs that I've seen, and I've done a lot of research looking into this, not only to mention looking at all of the tests and so forth that Steve's done from True Crime Web. I think it's mountains of evidence, and we don't even know what else they may have. I believe wholeheartedly, we have heard over and over for nearly 6 years that was the video really that helpful? I think it's going to come down to that video is going to be a nail in his coffin. I really do. I think that it is going to be one of the telltale things that actually gets him, because that video cannot be refuted of him being there and being on the bridge, wearing the clothes he describes himself in, coming towards the girls, one of the girls saying gun. Right then and there, he's outed. Why would he have a gun out on the girls if he wasn't going to be doing something nefarious? I think it's really interesting because there's a couple of different ways that we can look at this on whether or not is his own words going to be what sinks him. Very possibly here. Was he playing a game with law enforcement? Why would he come out and put himself there? Why would he come out and even feel the need to do that unless someone else knew he was there that day? That's what we may not know. Was there someone else that knew? Someone else that's not been talked about by law enforcement that knew Richard Allen was there that day, and if he didn't go forward or come forward and explain himself, that was what was going to be his nail. But that video, after all this time, and all of us kept thinking, really, we really can't see that this guy, there's no face. You can't really make out who this is, but there's enough now by his statement and his testimony to put him on that bridge with the girls with the gun, telling them to go down the hill. And that's all they need. I just don't see that, Frank. At this point in time, I don't see it. That doesn't mean it's not possible. For sure. I'm still having a problem wrapping my head around the Kleins being involved in this anymore. There's just something that tells me no. But that doesn't mean that I'm not wrong. I mean, seriously. I also think that they're still investigating. They're going to continue to investigate. Like I said before, a lot of people think that Richard Allen's been on the radar for years. I don't believe that. I believe Richard Allen is a brand new person to law enforcement that just came up. And I believe that because as I've stated before, I believe that sometime in late May or early June, Robert Ives or Robert Ives. I'm so sorry, you guys. I don't know if I got Robert Ives on the brain. Paul Holes got involved in this case again because we know he was in Delphi. There were photographs of him on the bridge, and people were trying to figure out why he was there. I believe that he was one of the investigators that was asked to look over the case and some of the information and the tips and so forth going back to the beginning. And I think it is that group that found the so-called missing conservation officer's information on Richard Allen. And that's what I think happened. And I think that the connection, John, I agree with you. I think the connection could very well be just the fact that they all frequented possibly the same kind of a chat room where they talked about their disgusting and deplorable depravities, their liking of young girls, their sharing of these images and stories and all of this. I think it is absolutely amazing to me that I just think that it's very possible that that's exactly what we're looking at here. But when Paul Holes, I think it was on, and I'd have to go back and look at it for sure. I shared it with you guys on Instagram, but on his Instagram back a week before the Richard Allen arrest, he posted a photograph on his Instagram of a guy in jail in a orange jumpsuit behind bars stating this is going to be someone very soon. And I believe that it was his way of telling us that the arrest in Delphi was coming quickly. And I think that that was what he was alluding to, because it was just within days of him posting that Richard Allen was arrested. And so it will be interesting, obviously, to see what we actually need to have to fill in all the blanks, because there still are so many questions. There's so much that we don't know. I think that we're going to be a while. They're still investigating. I'm assuming at this point in time, they're still getting tips on Richard Allen at this point. And so they have to go back and they have to go over those. And it takes time, you guys, to do that. I was reading some stuff today about people getting upset because law enforcement has taken so long in the CSAM case to even bring Kagan to justice. If they knew about him in February of 2017, why did they wait until August of 2020 to arrest him? Well, I don't think people still to this day understand how long these CSAM cases take to put together to be able to prosecute. A lot of these apps and a lot of these domains where these predators reside and play and do all of their nasty stuff are owned by foreign entities, foreign companies, not in this country. And to get the information from them or off their servers, it can take a long time to get that information and to get search warrants and things like that are going to work overseas in another country. And even, I mean, I saw it compared to Josh Duggar's case. For those of you who are aware of the Duggar family and the oldest son, Josh, who went to prison for CSAM, when the FBI did the raid on his automobile dealership, which is where he was looking at the porn and the child images and the sexual abuse materials, was in his office at this dealership, automobile dealership. And they knew that. They caught him doing it there. But they had to prove, again, who has access to that computer. And so it took a while for that. And it actually took them 2.5 years. 2.5 years, you guys, to finally arrest him. So it's not uncommon for these cases to take this long to be put together. And I think that there's a lot of naivety out there in society when it comes to this stuff because it's prevalent. And the more you go researching it and start looking into it, trust me, it's mind-boggling at how prevalent it is, and it makes you sick at your stomach. It literally makes you sick at your stomach. We talked on last Thursday about the fact that they had modified 18 charges of Kagan's. They've dismissed 5 and modified 18. And that is completely normal as well. Those things happen all the time in these cases. He's not making any plea bargains. This guy's not got any deals. I don't believe it for 1 minute that he's made a deal with anybody. And his trial has been set for May. So, will it happen in May? They just keep pushing his trial back. And I know that there's all the people around Delphi that think it's because of Delphi, but I don't. The longer that Kagan can stay in the county jail and not go to the big house, the luckier Kagan feels and the happier Kagan is, because he is going to be in much more danger and have a much more horrible existence when he goes to prison than he does in a county jail. And so far, for the last 2 years, he's been in county jail. And he would be happy if he could just stay there. I do believe that there are more people out there that believe more people were involved in this crime than just Richard Allen. I'm tending to lean more towards lone wolf, but am completely open, obviously, to it not being. And to having more people involved. I think it would be great if they could absolutely catch more of these guys all at once and put them all away at the same time. But one of the things that I do believe about Richard Allen, and the more I look at this, and just by what I just described to you about all the things that he admitted to the conservation officer, it's almost if he's been toying with police the whole time. I really wonder about people who will put themselves or place themselves at the scene of a double homicide and actually make themselves look guilty. There's got to be a reason for that. And we may not know what that is. We may never know what that is. So I don't know if you guys are aware or not of this, but one of Libby's favorite songs was um oh shoot. Heathens. God, I can't even think tonight. It's from the movie Suicide Squad. It was released in mid 2016 um by pilots. What's the oh my gosh. Um oh my gosh. I'm trying to think of the name of the group, you guys. I know who it is because I have it I have the song on my I have the song. But anyway, I wanted you guys, I wanted to read you the lyrics because this to me is also something that just makes it the coincidence of the song. If you haven't heard it, please go out, look it up, and listen to it. But it starts out, all my friends are heathens, take it slow. Wait for them to ask you who you know. Please don't make any sudden moves. You don't know half of the abuse. All my friends are heathens, take it slow. Wait for them to ask you who you know. Please don't make any sudden moves. You don't know half of the abuse. Welcome to the room of people who have rooms of people that they loved one day. Docked away. 21 Pilots. Thank you, Indy Pam. Just because we check the guns at the door doesn't mean our brains will change from hand grenades. This part just is incredibly creepy. You'll never know the psychopath sitting next to you. You'll never know the murderer sitting next to you. You'll think how I'd get here sitting next to you. But after all I've said, please don't forget. All my friends are heathens, take it slow. Wait for them to ask you who you know. Please don't make any sudden moves. You don't know half of the abuse. We don't deal with outsiders very well. They say newcomers have a certain smell. You have trust issues, not to mention. They say they can smell your intentions. You'll never know the freak show sitting next to you. You'll have some weird people sitting next to you. You'll think, how did I get here sitting next to you? But after all I've said, please don't forget. All my friends are heathens, take it slow. Wait for them to ask you who you know. And please don't make any sudden moves. You don't know half of the abuse. Why'd you come? You knew you should have stayed. I tried to warn you just to stay away. And now they're outside ready to bust. It looks like you must be one of us. All my friends are heathens, take it slow. Wait for them to ask you who you know. Please, all my friends are heathens, take it slow. Wait for them to ask you who you know. It's an amazing song. I love the song. It's in my playlist. When I found out that Abby and Libby loved it, and Libby especially, this is the song that they were playing on the way to the trails that day. Man. Yeah. Just it definitely, John. Definitely. Just crazy. It just really makes you think about how things happen, and yeah, just a lot. So hold on a second. I need to get back to my topics. So I wanted to talk to you guys. I wanted to say I got to look it up because I want to put it in chat so you guys have it. Hold on a minute. I'll also link what I'm going to put in down below in my description. Oops. On YouTube. And it is here it is. Okay. Copy. So you guys, I am currently in the process of watching this. Although I lived it, I wanted to go back. I've been trying to find something that would be a synopsis of the trial, because the trial was 8 months long. I needed to have something that was going to wrap it up, and give me pretty good highlights week to week, so that I could go back and not miss anything, so that when I cover this case for you guys, I can pull out some of the issues in this case and why the case ended up the way it did. And I keep looking at this case because I keep thinking of all the things that could go wrong in the Delphi case if people are not careful. And we don't know how a lot of this stuff was obtained, collected when it comes to evidence. We don't know any of that. And we're not going to know until this stuff all gets into trial and into court, and we start having the defense pick apart the prosecution case. And so I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about 5 life lessons that a lawyer learned from the trial of the century, which was O.J. Simpson. We heard for a long time when it was going on, that it was the trial of the century. We had never seen anything like it in the United States. It became that YouTube channel that I just put down here. It's a court TV. I don't even want to call it a documentary, but it is a court TV special. The people who are in the special all were there during the actual trial. They covered the trial. They have interviews with the players. They also show a lot of the trial. And you just watch it. And it is long, 20 some episodes, 25, I think, that are 45 minutes long. So it'll take you a while to watch it, but it's worth it if you want to see how things are so important in the CSI portion of a case. When you have crime scene investigators that are not doing things according to the book, that take I don't even want to know how to put it. I don't want to call them out and outright liars, although some of them were called that by cross-examination while they were on the stand because they were caught in lies. But they took side steps and shortcuts and did things that they knew were not something that they should have been doing. The verdict shocked America. There is absolutely no doubt about that. And, 30 years ago, you guys, almost 30 years. It'll be 30 years in 30 years in 20. It's 1994. It's coming up. It's going to be 30 years. So anyway, this prosecutor is a career prosecutor, and her name is Tracy Miller, and she's a witness preparation coach, preparation coach now. She does law enforcement and fire interview communications, and she's a retired senior assistant district attorney. And she said that this was the first case that she ever worked on. After the verdicts, she was so disgusted with the flawed system and society where a trial for the brutal homicide of 2 innocent people had become a reality TV show. She was saddened that viewers worldwide found entertainment in dancing judges, a fame-thirsty house guest, and a double homicide suspect that led police on a slow-speed chase while the world watched. With the current TV show American Crime Story, The People versus O.J. Simpson, airing after the 20-plus years of reflection, she realized the trial of the century held several life lessons for us all. Being a prosecutor, she said, was the only job she'd ever wanted. And one of her law school professors set up an interview for her at the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office. She said, "I can't tell you what case you are interviewing for," she said, "but you aren't going to get the job, but you should at least see what the inside of the DA's office looks like." Her interview was with not yet famous Christopher Darden for a law clerk position on the prosecution team for the O.J. Simpson case. A line of law students with better grades than mine sat in the hallway waiting to be interviewed. During our meeting, I told Chris a joke to break the ice, and then I showed him my transcript where I had a D+ in criminal law. And I'll never forget what happened. Chris said, "I like you. I think I could work with you 60+ hours a week. The job is yours." Chris treated all of the law clerks extremely well and gave us opportunities we never would have otherwise. I served coffee and ordered lunch every day for famous people as they waited for their turn to testify in court. I assisted with legal motions, observed the prosecutors prepare the witnesses, learned how to work and fix a copy machine, and occasionally went to court. But mostly I watched and I observed the behaviors and interactions of the prosecutors, the police officers, the witnesses, the victims, family members, and the judge. During the trial, I learned some things about the law, but I learned even more about life. The top 5 lessons that I learned are: number 1, women leaders are widely misjudged. Marcia Clark had it rough. Being a trial lawyer is extremely stressful, and being a prosecutor has the added stress of fighting for victims who no longer have a voice to fight for themselves. Marcia had the additional pressures of being the lead prosecutor on the trial of the century. She was ruthlessly criticized for her hairstyle, her suits, and for being a single mother. Her ex-husband sold private photos of Marcia to the tabloids during the trial. In contrast, none of the male attorneys were condemned for their appearance or their marital status. One day during the trial, I was in an elevator with Marcia when an unexpected legal issue arose. She quickly cited not only the case that addressed the issue, but the page number and the exact number of the corresponding footnote. Marcia is a strong, smart, direct, witty, and extremely hardworking woman. I learned to never criticize a woman for her style or status, but to instead pay attention to her character, experiences, work ethic, and values. Number 2, ending domestic violence is everyone's responsibility. When the verdicts were read, I was sitting in what we called the war room, an overflow room on the 18th floor of the DA's office where the support staff and some family members watched the trial on television. A member of the Brown family cried out immediately after the verdicts were read. What about the babies? What will happen to the babies? She was worried about the future of Nicole and OJ's children and fearful that OJ would now be allowed to raise them. During the trial, one of my tasks was to transcribe the several 911 tapes on which Nicole had called begging for help because OJ had brutally beaten her. Listening to these disturbing tapes often gave me nightmares. OJ beat Nicole repeatedly. He made her bleed and gave her severe bruises. Once he even locked her in a cellar. Many people in the Simpsons' inner circle knew that OJ beat Nicole and yet did nothing to stop him. Did they think it wasn't their business? Did they give him a pass because he was famous? Why was she ignored when she said he is going to kill me someday and get away with it? This trial taught me that domestic violence happens in every socioeconomic and racial group in America. Often the victim is criticized for being too emotional or ignored because she continues to go back to the abuser. Immediately after the trial, domestic violence laws became stronger in California. I learned from this case that domestic violence is a serious problem in America and that society must be vigilant to recognize, prevent, stop, and prosecute, educate, and be educated on domestic violence. What's the third life lesson that she learned? That the message matters. On the day of the opening statement, the prosecution law clerks brought in a cake that read, "Kick the rich lawyer's ass." We were so proud of that cake and its message. Even as law clerks, we could tell that the government lawyers were very out-resourced by the defense team. They had more lawyers, more money, better equipment, more expert witnesses, more support staff, and more expensive suits. The entire case took on a life of its own. Although we had great intentions, that cake had the wrong message. By reacting to the Dream Team, we were buying into their propaganda. The trial experience taught me the vital lesson that when life challenges you, don't overreact. Trust your training and education and keep your plan simple. The simpler the plan, the better. What's the number 4 life lesson she learned? That karma is real. The 24-year-old me was convinced that justice always prevails and good always wins. At the time, I thought that a guilty verdict would lessen the pain of the horrific crimes committed upon Ron Goldman and Nicole Brown. I now know that our justice system can't take the evil in our society and wrap it in a nice package. Although I strongly believe in our system, it can never completely compensate for the losses of the victims and their families. I've also learned that oftentimes life itself eventually provides justice. After all, OJ is currently serving, at this time he was, a 33-year term in prison for robbery, where he took property that he claimed was taken from him. The trial taught me that there is karmic energy in the world. Everything we do and everything we put out into the universe eventually comes back to us. What we give is what we get. And the last, teamwork is vital. We are a society that loves to criticize, and Monday morning quarterback in our fast-paced society, negative, often inaccurate stories immediately go viral. While thousands of police officers, true heroes who risk their lives daily for our safety, get no media coverage whatsoever. I have spoken to hundreds of people over the past 2 decades about the O.J. Simpson case. Many of them have been quick to point out what they would have done differently if they were the prosecutor. As O.J. prosecutor Bill Hodgman told us, Young attorneys quoting Theodore Roosevelt, "It is not the critic who counts." Bill always said being in the arena and doing the right thing is what matters. Over the years, the TV cameras and celebrities are not what I remember most about the experience. Although I played a small part, I worked on a dedicated team of deputy district attorneys, police officers, and support staff. This team was extremely hardworking and extraordinarily passionate about their mission. Every individual on that team worked tirelessly for the cause and made countless personal sacrifices to fight for those two murdered victims who could no longer fight for themselves. The trial of the century taught me that working with a team of dedicated people for a common good is one of the greatest joys there are in life. And Tracy Miller is an assistant district attorney for Orange County, California, where she's worked for the past 19 years. She's also a professional executive leadership and team building trainer and a motivational speaker. I thought it was interesting to get her take on it because she was so young and what she was doing for the team. So, let's see. There were a ton of errors made in the O.J. Simpson case that the defense was able to capitalize upon. Those errors and those inconsistencies and the rush to judgment in the case by law enforcement is what led to the outcome at trial. This case has been studied and studied and studied, and it has been taken apart by law school professors, and many law school briefs have been written on this case, and it's very interesting. But on June 13th in 1994, around midnight, Nicole Brown Simpson and Ronald Goldman were found stabbed to death outside Nicole Brown Simpson's condominium on Bundy Avenue in Brentwood, California. And Ronald Goldman was also there, found stabbed to death next to her. Their bodies were found at the entrance of Orenthal James Simpson, who at the time was an actor, football player, and broadcaster. And they were found at the entrance to the condominium that he owned. The case would soon become very famous due to the controversies surrounding his guilt, his involvement, and how the evidence was used and handled. This famous case has taught forensic scientists and those in the field how to properly handle evidence, as well as many other things. What was the evidence in the case? The evidence in the case was a blood-stained glove, a knitted hat, a bloody footprint, and blood samples. What was the importance? The DNA from O.J., Nicole, and Ronald were found on the glove. Hair that matched O.J., or seemingly matched O.J., was found in the hat. And the shoe matched O.J.'s shoe size and was a type of shoe that he had owned. What are some of the other things that was an issue for the prosecution? Was the chain of custody of the evidence. And we've talked about this before, but the chain of custody is a procedure that is used when collecting the evidence. It is a way to know who has handled the evidence in chronological order. And it is absolutely imperative that that chain not be broken and that it also must be documented. What can happen if it's broken? Well, if the chain of custody is broken, then the evidence can be thought of being altered. And that can cause a lot of controversy and reasonable doubt in court, which is exactly what happened in OJ's case. There were so many errors, it was almost impossible to count them all. But the evidence was not collected properly at the scene. The evidence was being taken to an evidence van outside of the Bundy address on the street where the cooling refrigerators were broken, and it was just being laid in the back of this hot van on a summer's day in 1994. And everyone who testified that when blood samples are left laying out in the heat and not kept under refrigeration, DNA can degrade to the point that you cannot get a good reading on the DNA. The way the evidence was transported to the lab for testing, how the evidence was tested, and how it was presented in court. These are just errors, guys. Blood samples that were found at the crime scene, if it was left undocumented and stored in an investigator's pants pocket, they took, one of OJ's nurses took a blood sample from him at Rockingham. That blood sample was handed to Van Adder, one of the lead detectives on the case. He in turn put it in his pants pocket and carried it around almost all day long, back and forth between Rockingham and Bundy, the other crime scene. Unbelievable and not heard of. It just doesn't happen. There was a bloody fingerprint outside of Nicole Brown's house. It was never documented nor collected until later, like 3 or 4 weeks later. When blood samples were found at the scene, they were packaged in plastic containers. And when I go over the case, you'll learn why, but you never, ever put a blood sample in plastic. It needs to always go in glass. The number of swatches or bags of evidence was not known because each swatch wasn't numbered. So it was supposed to be. Everything must be documented throughout the entire time, including everyone who had the evidence at some point. When blood evidence is found at a crime scene, it should never be left undocumented in an investigator's pocket for hours. Let the blood stain dry and then properly package it with a label and then send the evidence directly to the lab. The bloody fingerprint was not documented when it was first found. And the fingerprint was also left unattended. When you find evidence, it's never to be left unattended until it's collected. It is to be guarded by police officers. When a bloody fingerprint is found, it should be secured and collected as soon as possible to avoid any contamination. It should then be packaged and labeled to be sent off to the lab because it is a blood sample. The blood evidence shouldn't be placed in plastic, as it can cause the DNA in the blood to degrade, and then the sample will become useless. When there are blood samples, the blood should be dried and placed into paper swatches, never plastic. It was a mistake because the number of swatches should always be accounted for. If the number is not accounted for, then there is no way of knowing if evidence was lost or if more evidence was added. Document and label each swatch so each one can be accounted for in court. And overall, the collection of evidence was not followed. And what have scientists learned because of all of this? They must always document evidence and send it over to the lab as soon as possible. And they must always secure evidence immediately when it is found. They must package the evidence in the right container. They need to keep track of all evidence by properly numbering each bag or swatch. And the crime scene. The crime scene of the OJ case was mainly taking place where the bodies were found, on OJ's property. More specifically, they were focusing on the entrance to the condo. And then they looked at his home, the garage, and wherever there was evidence to be found. One of the first things you're supposed to do at a crime scene is section it off and secure it. And in this case, they failed to do so by allowing many investigators and people to walk all over the scene, getting their bloody shoe prints everywhere. And again, this is something that you wonder about what happened in Delphi, because we don't know how well and secured off that scene was. The team consisted of undertrained non-professionals who were the ones collecting the evidence, leading to contamination and improper handling. The evidence was not properly packaged due to this. The pictures that were being taken at the scene were not taken to scale or with a scale or object for reference to its size and its location. It was a whole 2 months after the crime until someone noticed that there was a pair of bloody socks as evidence. 2 months, you guys. The proper first step to prevent others from intervening in the crime scene is to tape off the area and only allow access to those who must be at the scene. They actually have to sign in and sign out and tell why they have to be there. Have only professionals and trained people handle the evidence and its collection in such an important case. This evidence also must be carefully monitored, watched over, so that the chain of custody is fully completed. And you always take pictures with reference objects, or with things like rulers or measuring tapes. This allows for a more accurate idea of where the evidence is and what its size is. Again, with the bullet or with the unspent round that was found between Abby and Libby, we hope that all of that was done. We're positive they photographed it, and let's hope that they took a reference object with it and put next to it for reference. All of those things. A thorough sweep of the scene must be done in order to verify that no evidence was missed during the first initial sweep. All people involved must be extremely careful and observant for any signs of evidence, as well as using deductive reasoning to come to these conclusions. The footprints from the police officers and the first responders caused a real problem in the OJ case. With the evidence and the case outcome, they made it much harder to analyze and identify any footprints that were there before, making the footprint evidence less reliable in court when it was being used against OJ. Having untrained people collecting evidence and not packaging it properly can lead to many problems like contamination of evidence. This can also lead to the evidence being destroyed and no longer viable for tests for court. Taking pictures at the crime scene is a crucial act because when the scene and evidence has to be recalled in court, they need an accurate representation of it. This information could also help prove or disprove somebody's claim. Missing a piece of crucial evidence is a huge error, such as in the socks, as it could have been incriminating evidence. Since it was left for so long, it was rendered nearly useless, like most of the other evidence. And what did they learn from this? When working with evidence or on any crime scene for that matter, you must be extremely careful and precise with your work. If you are not, you can make mistakes and contaminate the evidence. Smaller mistakes can lead to bigger ones, and so on. Follow protocol. Not doing so leads to these errors, which you will be regretting later on. And then there were general ethics rule errors. And what does that mean? What is something that's unethical? Simply put, being unethical means that it's not morally correct. Ethics relates to forensics because it represents what is morally right and wrong within the legal system. In forensics, following procedures, strictly obeying the rules of evidence, maintaining impartial, treating everyone and everything fair and justly at all times are some of the most important ethical behaviors to follow. There were a lot of ethical errors in the case. The Fourth Amendment protection from illegal search and seizure. The police obtained a search warrant at 10:45 a.m., 6 hours after they had seized the premises. And that was at the Rockingham address, OJ's home. Mark Fuhrman's alleged comments that were racially prejudiced called his character into question. Mark Fuhrman pleading the Fifth Amendment when asked if he'd falsified police reports. Susan Forward, a clinical social worker who had held 2 sessions with Nicole in 1992, made unsolicited disclosures regarding her deceased former client. She commented in public that Miss Simpson had allegedly reported experiencing abuse at the hands of OJ. So what was the Fourth Amendment violation? Mr. Fuhrman jumped the wall to Mr. Simpson's residence without a warrant and proceeded to find some key evidence that may have incriminated OJ. The Supreme Court says that illegally obtained evidence may not be used in criminal trials. And it was argued that this violated OJ's Fourth Amendment's rights, meaning they should not be allowed to use it against him. Fuhrman was discredited by the prosecution when he was alleged to be a racist. Since Mr. Simpson was a black man, the prosecution said that Mr. Fuhrman simply wanted to see another black man behind bars out of his own ignorance and intolerance. And that was actually the defense that did that, not the prosecution. Mark Fuhrman was a prosecution witness. Mr. Fuhrman should always follow proper procedure, and he is supposed to be a trustworthy, reliable source. Instead of denying the allegations, he decided not to incriminate himself, which made him seem very suspicious to the jury for pleading the Fifth. When you breach client confidentiality, as in Mrs. Forward, even though she thought she was helping, private therapy conversations are in most cases legally protected from public disclosure, even when the patient is deceased. So those procedures all came into play and really, really hurt that case. And, making sure that they're legally obtaining their evidence. And what makes you worry and wonder about things that we don't know is because of the location of this case. Delphi, Indiana, Carroll County, we know it's a small location, small time sheriff's office, not very many players. And yeah, they had access to the state crime lab. They had FBI there rather quickly. And let's hope that when they were gathering this evidence out there at the bridge and in the woods, that they followed all these protocols that we're talking about. That people maintained the chain of command of the evidence. And it's just really important. And like I said, there are a lot of things that we don't know about this case. We don't know any of that, but these are the things that's going to come out in court. Yeah, little daisies. There's so much about that case that people don't know. That things that were done. It is very easy to see why it only takes a little seed of doubt to be entered into a juror's mind, where you get reasonable doubt, and you're thinking this, this is a person's life we're talking about here. This is a person's life for two brutal homicides. It's not any laughing matter, and you have to be paying attention to what's going on here. And they botched it. They completely botched it. And like I said, if you watch what I told you, if you guys watch the show, you will see some really good cross-examination. F. Lee Bailey was absolutely phenomenal in his cross-examination of witnesses. He absolutely tore Mark Fuhrman apart. And he did it. It was just methodical, the way he did it. So these are the things that everybody's going to be asking when Richard Allen goes to trial. Does he have this kind of, is this the kind of stuff that, does he have this kind of high-powered defense attorneys? Well, according to some, yes, these defense attorneys are very good defense attorneys and are well known for winning cases. So was Marcia Clark. She'd never lost. She had never lost a prosecution until the OJ case. So, you can go in thinking that you have all of this evidence and all of these things and completely be blindsided in court by a really good defense. Because remember, the defense doesn't have to prove anything. All they have to plant is reasonable doubt. And that's why for months and months and months, Cop Faxx and Perry Freeman kept saying, be careful about how we cover these cases. Be careful about what we say about these cases and who we put forth as POIs and how we're talking about that, because the defense can take that and use it to plant reasonable doubt in a juror's mind. And so, I mean, it's just what it is, We're just going to have to wait and be patient. We're going to soon, here in a few days, be celebrating the beginning of 2023. We're going to have a lot going on in the beginning of the year. We've got Richard Allen's going to be in court in February. We've got supposedly a trial for Kagan in May. And we're just going to have to wait and see, you guys, what happens. But there's a lot that we don't know. And there's a lot that we know. And it's like I told you guys when I put through the timeline, basically, of what happened and how Richard Allen placed himself right directly on the bridge with the girls with the gun. Because he can say what he wants, but just not, it's not a coincidence. I've always heard there's no coincidences in murder. But, oh, Mindy, he's wonderful. He really, truly is. And so is Steve. They both are. And, they've given us great insights into law enforcement and how things are supposed to work. Hey, Verbal Judo. Congrats, my dear. Thank you so much. So all we can hope is that Nick McClellan is brushing up and making sure that he is doing his due diligence as a prosecutor in this case. And if he needs help, he asks for it and gets help, because this is going to be a big case. This is going to be a lot of years. I mean, we're talking about the OJ case happened in July of 94 and went to trial 8 months later. That was quick, you guys, for back then even. This case has been 5 years, 5.5, almost 6 years in getting an arrest. So there is a lot of discovery. And that's the other thing. They've got to make sure that they turn over all the discovery that they have in the case. So let's hope that that happens as well. Because those are some other things. When you've got so doggone much of it, you want to make sure that all of it gets turned over to the other side. So, yeah, exactly, John. I agree. Please ask for help, Nick. We can only hope. But you guys, that's all I have for you tonight. I really wanted to, just spend some time with you and talk a little bit more about the case and where we're going with it. What are some of the things that we could be looking at, of problems, and how are we going to, what are we going to possibly see in court? And these are some of the things I wanted to give you a heads up on, or an angle on. And the more, like I said, the more I think about it, and the more you've got O.J. Simpson, which was a double homicide as well. And this is a double homicide. And so you've got a lot of evidence, a lot of physical evidence, and both crimes are committed outdoors. So you have all of that going on. And I think it just makes for a more complicated case in a lot of ways. Let's just hope they're prepared for that. And well, Mindy, that's one of the things with all the tips that they got on this case. A lot of those tips were just junk tips, because we had people tipping in, all kinds of people that had absolutely nothing to do with this crime. They weren't even in the vicinity of the crime, and they were being accused of it, or they were being tipped in for it. And that's the thing. I mean, just because a guy kills somebody over here doesn't mean that he killed somebody here. I mean, you got to be able to place them. I said all along, you got to be able to place them at the bridge in the woods with the girls. So, but anyway, you guys, I hope you have a great rest of your night. I'm sorry I kept you so long. I did not plan on it being this long of a live. Talk too much tonight, obviously. And I hope you guys have a great couple of days. I'll see you on Thursday. I think I'm going to do a New Year's Eve type show on Thursday. So it'll be interesting what we're going to talk about. I'm going to make it a more of a fun type show to end the year. More of appreciative show, I guess, for everyone who has supported me all year long. I can't say enough about all of you. I couldn't do it without you. And I really appreciate all of you sticking with me and being here through it all. So I hope you have a great rest of your week. I will see you guys on Thursday, and be safe out there. And it doesn't cost anything to be kind. So everybody be kind. Good night, everyone.